Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast. Discover yourself, break out of mediocrity, and become the mom you've always aspired to be. Here's your host, Kirsten Tyrell.
Hey, Marvelous Moms. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. It is so fun to sit here again and chat with women. I know if you're listening that there's been a dry spell on the podcast, but we're bringing back so many amazing episodes, and today is nothing short of wonderful. I have the beautiful, wonderful mother of, I don't even know, actually, 5, 6? Is this 6?
We'll say 4 with 2 in heaven and 1 on the way.
That's perfect.
Whatever you want to say.
Shoot, I should not have started that because I really didn't know what the total was. Anyway,
don't worry.
Jesika Harmon is on the podcast today. I've known Jesika since high school. She probably doesn't even know how long I've been aware of her presence on this earth, but I've totally watched her, admired her. She comes from an amazing family. She's a great example, one of those amazing people you just want to follow on the internet because she makes you feel good. So welcome to the podcast, Jesika.
Oh, you're sweet. Thanks so much. Honestly, I'm so honored to be here. I think what you do is amazing and so needed, and just feel blessed. I'm going from you, I know, as we're talking. I have my paper and pen. I'm sure I will be using
You're
it.
You're going to be taking notes from your own episode.
Thanks for having from your comments. I've listened to enough of your podcast to know that you say amazing things.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay, so you kind of talked about how many kids you have. Go ahead and give us a little background on you, how many kids you have. You mentioned a couple in heaven, and then you're currently pregnant right now with another one. So give us a little history of your childbearing years, I guess.
My childbearing years that are coming to a close, which is happy for me. If they're not for any of you listening, it's okay. Enjoy every second of it all. And there's the highs and lows, and it's all great. So my oldest is 10, Bree. She is just delightful and the best helper, and I learned so much from her. And then I have 2 boys, 8 and 6, and in between there, we had a little boy that we lost. And then we have a little girl who is 3.5, and she is keep us on our toes, thinks she's 16 right now, but she's the best. And then, we had a little boy, he would be 2 now. And I think I probably talk about our other little ones that are in heaven because I can't be anywhere with my other kids and not have my 6-year-old especially say, when someone says, how many kids do you have? I say, we have 4 children. He'll say, and we have 2 brothers in heaven.
Aww.
Which I think is so sweet because we believe that we will see them someday and we will be with them someday. And I love that they're a part of my children's lives, and that's a part of our family. And then we have a little boy on the way coming next month.
So exciting.
Praying that all goes well there. And
I'm sure that it will. I'm sure that it will. How fun is that going to be? Oh my gosh. It sounds like a really good dynamic. You've got a couple girls, a couple boys, and now you've got a little tiebreaker in there, which is going to be super fun. And then you've got 2 more that you get to look forward to hanging out with in another 50 years or so.
I know my little boy even said we were going through all of the boy clothes to see what's salvageable for this baby, and I was getting rid of some stuff, and he said, Mom, no, you have to save that for when we get to have Hugh, which was the one that we lost just a couple years ago. And I was just thinking that is so that he wants to save his clothes for his little brother. That's real to him, that someday we'll get to have him, and I'm so grateful.
I think that's so awesome. I love that that's just as real to him as if you were here right now. I think that's really special. And it's cool that your kids get to have that understanding and that grasp of, I don't know, it's just such a cool way to learn one-on-one what the experience is of death and of what comes after. I mean, it's just, I don't know, there's no better way for them to grasp eternity and heaven and our purpose here and all of that than to have experienced that firsthand. Even though it's painful and it's confusing, I'm sure they're going to be eons ahead in their comprehension of everything because they've gone through it.
Well, and I feel like that's something that, at the time when things were happening, that was really hard to see. But now having, a little bit of time, I don't know, I feel like children really thrive on having that sense of security in knowing, maybe we don't have all the answers for our children, and maybe we all don't even know what we believe yet. But to be searching and to be questioning is so good. And I'm just grateful that I have really searched and really questioned and sought for answers from God, that I can feel confident and comfortable in telling my children, yeah, there is a place that your brother is, that your brothers are, that we will see them someday. And I believe that 100%, and I'm able to tell them that and teach them that. And so I just think as a mother, it's such a blessing to be striving when you have questions to figure those out, because then you can then teach your children and give them that confidence and security in knowing that, yeah, I believe this, and I think this will really happen.
Yeah, and you touched on something I think I've really mentioned in other episodes that I think a lot of people is like eye-opening, because we think, and you and I were just talking about the mission of Marvelous Moms Club before we started recording, and how it's easy to get stuck in the day-to-day and the mundane, and we start just feeling like our only job is to just raise our kids, but we forget that in order to do that well, we have to constantly be evolving and growing and learning ourselves. Otherwise, we have nothing to teach our children. And so that's kind of where a lot of that comes in, is like, I realized I don't want to get to a point where, I mean, my kids are going to outsmart me for sure. Like, they came here with their own little set of responsibilities and what they're going to do while they're on the earth, and they just have some skills that I probably will never have. But I would love to always constantly be teaching my children spiritual things, like educational things, life experiences, and for me to just kind of stop my progression right now doesn't just hinder me, it hinders my children too, because I'm also not setting an example to them of continuing to learn. So I know that's just a tiny spin-off of what you said, but I love that. The more confidently you can share your heart and share what you know, the more they're actually going to feel like it's truth, and they're going to trust you and be able to build upon that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it just reminded me, thinking back on when my oldest, was just learning to read. She was in first grade. It was either first or second, when she was reading well enough that she was just starting to get into her own chapter books, and I really wanted that for her. I have a sister who grew up like bookworm, who was always reading. And I was like, I'll read if my teacher gives me an assignment. I'd rather go play, or, I didn't get as much fulfillment out of it as she did. And in college, I felt really directed, even though it wasn't my main interest. I just felt like God was telling me I needed to major in English. And I was like, okay, that's not what I would have thought of. I'm not planning on being a teacher. But I went that route and read, however many books each semester in all of my literature classes and such. And then started having children and kind of just didn't have time to read, I thought, and whatever. And then I got to this place where my daughter was just starting to get into reading, and I just wanted her to be a reader, and just thought, there are so many wonderful things that you get from good literature. And I just had this really strong feeling like God was telling me, if you want her to be a reader, she has to see you read. And I mean, that was really the last thing I felt like I had time for, was to sit on the couch with a book in the middle of the day. But I started doing that, and I had a huge list of books I wanted to read. And so I just started doing that. It wasn't every day, but every once in a while, when they'd be home from school or whatever we were doing, people were just kind of playing whatever, I'd sit on the couch and I'd start reading a book. And I don't think that's the only reason that she loves reading so much, but I just felt like it was a really good reminder that they have to see us doing those things that we're telling them or we're teaching them. Yeah. And then it really sparked this. Now I always have 3 or 4 books going on, just because now I love it so much. And it's really a part of feeding myself in all different ways that you need as a mom, because it's not enough to just, at least for me, to just get together with other moms for play dates or field trips or group things. I have to be feeding my own intellect.
Yeah. I love that. And I asked you, but tell everybody else what you're reading right now, or what you just finished and what you're reading.
I know. I feel like it changes constantly. Sometimes there will be a book that's just not doing it for me, and I'll set it aside. And sometimes there's page turners. I don't even know if I said this one, but I'm reading with my kids The Door in the Wall.
Oh, that sounds really good.
It's actually really great. Like, one of the opening quotes from this it's back in like medieval times, and this boy that gets deserted because the servants think he has the plague. And long story short, he's kind of being helped and raised by this monk in this monastery, and he's talking about like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that, or what if my legs never get better, or whatever. And the monk says to him, do you remember the wall around your family's garden? Yeah, totally. Well, do you remember the wall around the monastery? Yeah, I do. He said, think of any wall you've ever seen, and if you follow along the wall long enough, there will always be a door. And that's like on one of the first pages, and I'm getting all excited. And I think my kids, they did like, woo, they don't really know what that means yet. And I'm sure there will be more explanation in the book, but I'm just like, I'm getting so much out of this book that I'm reading to my children. It's meant to be more, children literature, but
that's so cool.
So good.
Well, sometimes those are the best books because well, first of all, they're like appropriate for all ages, so you never have to worry what you're going to come across in them. Yeah. And it's just a good reminder. You know how that like quote, everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten, like all of your good manners and the basics. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. The core of all of these principles we start to just cycle through because they become so monotonous and we hear them all the time. I've talked about this before. I don't know if on the podcast, but even Disney movies and the whole entire premise that wishing upon a star, making your dreams come true, it all just starts to feel hokey and like we're not all really worthy of that fairy tale ending or that fairy tale life, when really we are. And maybe that doesn't mean perfection. It just means we're worthy of like actually setting goals. We're actually setting dreams and having things happen that are good to us. And when you really realize like there's a reason that we're so drawn to these messages, and it's because it's what we're meant to be and have. It's really cool. So I love that. I'm excited to read. I'm going to start reading that book with my kids. So thanks for the recommendation.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to go into a little side note here, which I think is really funny. Something really cool about you that you didn't mention, but I know about you, is that back in, was this college or high school, you were Miss Junior Miss? Like national?
Long time ago. That's funny.
I still remember watching that, and I feel like it might have been back in the day when we still had VCRs. Would it have been that long ago?
Yeah, totally. 2000. It was like after my senior year. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Definitely. I'm sure we recorded it and watched it all together, and we were like, oh my goodness, somebody local won. And it was so wonderful. But I really don't just say that to embarrass you or to, point that out in like a funny way, but it's just a good example of the type of leader that you are and just the vibrancy in which you live your life. And I think that's definitely translating into your motherhood. I can see it just from reading like the questionnaire that I sent you. That translates across the board and is the reason that I have you on here. So tell me a little bit about your homeschooling life and what you're trying to teach your children or what the vibe is like in your home because you're homeschooling.
Well, something that I never imagined I would do. Homeschool.
I don't think anybody does. Not very many people plan it.
Honestly, was not even on my radar. My oldest went to kindergarten, public school, first grade, second grade, and my second went to kindergarten. And I just started noticing things. About, especially my oldest, how she was acting and how things she was bringing home, things she was learning. And there were just plethora of reasons that I just felt like you really need to look into homeschooling. Mm-hmm. And it was over the course of, even before my kids were in school, I was meeting some moms that were homeschool moms. I'm like, oh, really? Your kids are totally normal and you homeschool? And, just little seeds being planted. And anyway, after second grade, my husband and I just felt really, really good about it. And I had been reading books the couple of years leading up to that and just talking to different homeschool moms and got some ideas and said, okay, we're going to try this. And it has been such a beautiful thing for our family.
That's amazing.
We've been doing it for 2 years now. And just the family culture that it's developed for us has been something that couldn't have happened for us had we not taken this homeschool route. And now we're not going to homeschool forever. I know that my kids will at some point be going, we'll go to school and,
maybe.
I feel like there's really,
maybe not.
I feel like there's Well, but I feel already, like, especially for a couple of my kids, I feel like there's some things that
Yeah.
I'm not able to give them like they need to learn in a different setting.
Gotcha.
And I think it's just for whatever reason, and people that homeschool forever, I think it's amazing too. And I know some fabulous kids that grew up being completely homeschooled, that I don't think didn't miss out in any way. But I feel like God was trying to show me how I could be a better mother in having my kids in such an intimate way every single day, and not just being their mom, but being their school teacher, and just discovering them and their personalities in a different way that I wouldn't have been able to do had they been in school all day, every day. And even if and when they go back to school, I feel like I will be approaching things so much differently. Our summers will be completely different. Our weekends will be completely different. Just the time that I will have, if they are at school, the time that I will have with them, I will be so much more deliberate about, because I feel like knowing them and knowing what they need and knowing what our family needs now, it's been shown to me through having this homeschool experience, which has been hard as heck sometimes, but has been so neat in so many ways. And it, again, has really just helped me stretch and helped me see that my kids will be okay if they have homeschool for a couple of years, and then maybe they go to school for a couple of years, and then maybe in 8th grade, I feel like my 8th grader needs to come home and just do homeschool with her, and she'll be just fine going back into high school the next year. Like, I feel like the education is such an important thing that it's so different even than when I feel like we were in school, that if we're not taking ownership of that with our children, I just don't feel like they're going to be getting as much out of it as they could to prepare them for life.
Yeah, that's so true. I absolutely agree with you. I tried homeschooling for about 3 months. It's longer than I probably would have expected I would have made it. I had intent to stay with it forever when we pulled him out. I think it was a little bit premature because we were still at a point when we work from home, and it was a little too much to have work from home and homeschool at the same time.
No, I can't.
It was tricky, and it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna either just like pay for a babysitter when he could be in school, and my son really needed the structure that school offered, but I definitely know it's in our future to do it again with all of our children. And there's so many different reasons to do it. It's not just one big solid reason. I totally agree with you. There's a plethora of reasons, and there's a plethora of reasons that it can be amazing and successful and wonderful. So I do look forward to it, and I think it is so fun. I love being in that mindset of like full time with my kids. I love working. I love having my me time. But when I know that I'm like clocked into motherhood, it's so fun. And it's just, they're like the coolest people ever.
Yes. I love how you said that, clocked into motherhood, because if we don't think of it like that, then it just becomes a survival thing. I feel like I have to have my phones put away. I'm not checking emails. I'm not, answering. I'm clocked into motherhood. How you said that is so beautiful, because then that time with them is more deliberate, and they feel that and they see that. And then when I'm saying, okay, now you have your hour of quiet time and mommy's going to work on some stuff, it's okay for me to say, no, you can be in your room, you can go in the other room, I'm on my computer right now, or I'm reading this right now, or I'm studying this right now. And I can say that to them because I have given them their time.
Exactly. And you feel better, you feel happy, because there's nothing worse than mom guilt, and it comes from so many different places.
Yes.
So many places.
Yes.
It can be from like not cooking enough nutritious meals for your family in the week, and you might have just had pizza bites for lunch and a pizza for dinner. Like we had a day like that last week, and the guilt is overwhelming. But I think just what I've had to do is really give myself a lot of forgiveness and realize that I don't remember stuff like that from my childhood. I don't remember days that my mom was so stressed out that she fed me boxed food for a couple meals a day. So yeah, I think it's great. It's a good balance for them, and it's a great balance for you, because you do feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but it's okay to have different things going on in your day and in your life, and you don't have to feel bad about that. So
and I feel like sometimes it is good for them to see and remember and know that mom's human too, and mom makes mistakes too. With the beginning of this pregnancy, I was so sick, and it was the beginning of the school year, and I just remember sitting there like, okay, God, you told me to do this.
Yeah.
I am not, I mean, like me laying on the couch telling them to bring their math over and can we do it on the couch today? Like that is not effective. Like I don't get it. Like, why did you want us to do this? And I just had this feeling one day that they need to see that mom is
Mm-hmm.
human and they need to see that maybe they need to pick up some
Yeah.
slack and they're going to entertain themselves or they're going to need to help each other and take care of
Yeah.
mom until she feels better. And then I don't know, I just got this feeling of that it'll be good for
Mm-hmm.
them to remember and to know that, you know, we all have bad days or we all have hard times and then it will get better.
Yeah.
And then when they're in those situations, they won't maybe have as much
Yeah.
guilt.
Or they won't feel ashamed to have those feelings either. Like they'll know
Right, right,
that happens even when you're a
right.
grown up. I don't
Yes,
feel, I feel like
yes.
the times and some of the moments I felt closest to my kids and I've really allowed them to learn compassion is when I've let them see me cry. When, you know, because we feel like we need to protect them a little bit. So I'll try and kind of not be around them. But it's interesting how they have a radar and they find me. But if I'm hiding in a corner of the house and I'm upset, they will find me and they are like the first to put their arms around me and hug me and bring me tissues. And I'm like, why would I ever hide this from them? They need to know. And it's not like I need to show you that you guys have stressed me out because most of the time it's not even crying because of anything they've done. It's just adult problems.
Right,
But
right.
why would I hide that from them and deny them that experience for being able? It's just the same like serving other people. It's uncomfortable to be served. It's uncomfortable to let people see our weakness, but it's so great when our kids get to see that in us, and it's such a great learning experience. So you're doing everything right, even if you are sick on the couch and they have their math books.
No, no, no. I told my daughter just at school today, and I was saying how, okay, the baby's due towards the end of May, and it could come a little early, so we're going to try to finish all our school stuff by the middle of the month. And she's like, this is great. We started the school year late because you were sick, and now we're ending the school year early because of the baby. Like, so long as we're getting it all done, I guess that's okay.
Exactly. That's all that matters. They're getting all their education in, and it's an extra long summer. They are having the best of both worlds. And how fun that they get to be home. I remember I had 5.5 years until I had siblings, and so now that your kids are a little bit older too, I hated going to school when we had a new baby in the house. So it's how fun that they get to like be there and be part of that experience. You're like, yeah, let's see how fun it is when I'm trying to take care of a newborn.
No, I do think it'll be great in a lot of ways. Yeah, I hope it's not too crazy, but
You'll have to keep us posted. Give us some survival tips and how to do it, how to basically do it all and still be happy.
Yeah, not do it all. I'm sure there were things that will slide off for a little while, and that's okay.
Okay, so I want to go into this a little bit more. I know I kind of asked you what the hardest thing you've really gone through, and I want to touch on that too. But you talked about the 2 babies you've lost. Were they both miscarriage? I feel like the more recent one that you lost was a little bit more public, or at least I was following you on social media at the time.
Yeah, no, but yeah, the first one was a miscarriage that was, I mean, just barely into the second trimester. So yeah, just a miscarriage. And then the second one was, I wasn't completely full term, but it was more of a stillborn.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
That is tricky and that is difficult. And now I know the reason I bring this up is your most recent post was you crossed over that threshold of being further along now in this pregnancy than you were in the other. How much fear did you have kind of going into it again and getting pregnant again? Because I know that's terrifying. Did you feel fear? Did you feel peace with it?
I feel like any time in my life I've had something where I felt moved to do something, felt like God was telling me to do something, there is that peace because you know it's the right thing, but then, I mean, it's hard not to have that fear accompany it. And yeah, this one was really hard, especially because I have some fun issues when I'm pregnant that just make life not very fun. And the thought of being pregnant again when that was supposed to be our last one was just like, I really don't want to do this again. And to feel like it would be the best for our family and we're supposed to have this last little one. Yeah, it was really, really hard. And last week or so, whenever, last week being able to say, okay, now we're farther along than than we were when we lost our little Hugh was exciting and yet still scary because it could happen at any time, or it could happen in any way. But I do feel like God wouldn't ask us to do something, or he wouldn't send something or allow us to endure something unless it was going to make us stronger and make us better. And I have seen so many blessings come from losing our baby, as hard as it was and is at times. I know that there is purpose in that suffering, and I can't not be grateful for all that I've learned from it. And so that gives me peace, and that gives me comfort with this one, and knowing that it's going to be what it's supposed to be for our family. And at least there is an end in sight for this pregnancy and all of the discomforts and
everything that comes with it
are not my favorite. And it's given me a new appreciation for so many things too. And so there's definitely peace that comes. And honestly, I don't know how people go through things without faith, because without Christ, I could not, I could not do it. And I'm just so grateful that I have been allowed to feel just a little bit of the pain and anguish that he went through for me and for my sins. And I'm so grateful.
I love everything you just said. I don't even know how I had all these responses spinning as you were talking, because that's like my job, interviewing you. But now I just feel like sitting here in the piece of what you just said.
Oh,
I can't even respond. It's such an amazing thing. I think a lot of us miss out on. You see somebody going through something and you're like, I could never do that. Like, I could never handle losing a child. I could never handle divorce. I could never make it through that. And what people don't understand is that, yes, you can. And I really feel like I have perspective because I've been surrounded by people with such a different array of struggles and heartbreak, that I know that they're still here and they're still standing because of faith and because they do have Christ in their life. Like, this isn't like a totally denominational podcast, but I do not have any problem talking about faith on here, because it's such a core of life and the life that I have. And most of my guests have some kind of spirituality, but so I feel comfortable saying this, but really there's nothing bad that comes from those trials. Like, it's such a blessing to me. I was with my sister-in-law last week, and she's been taking a Hebrew class, and she's been learning these Hebrew words that help her really grasp scriptures better, Bible, whatever. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there are pieces of this and things that God wants us to know that we can't even understand because we don't know what he originally meant when he said it. And that kind of reminds me of that. We talk about, being in the wilderness of our life and going through struggle, and how it would be such a detriment to our lives if we didn't have to suffer and we didn't have to have pain, because then we're not becoming closer to him and we're not learning how to be broken a little bit so that we could be healed. So that's
okay. I have to share this quote that goes right with that. So I have a friend and I started just a little Instagram feed a while ago, where we focus on scripture, because it's been such a huge power and strength in our lives, in feeling like you're going through something or you have a question. God has already given us so much in the scriptures to answer our questions and to help us through. And anyway, we kind of focus on a different topic each month. And this month we're talking about overcoming grief through Christ. And a quote that we found that I absolutely love that says just what you said: the only way to avoid the grief would be to not experience the love. And it's the love that gives life its richness and meaning. Lance B. Wickman said that. I just love that, because I feel like, if you want to experience, and my sister put it so beautifully one time after a really emotional heartbreak, a breakup in my early college years, that she was saying one time, maybe it's that our hearts have to break a little bit to allow room for them to grow and be more filled with love.
Oh, that is so
sweet.
And
I feel like I just experienced that over and over in life, and feeling like there are some really, really hard things that happen to people. And like you said, I look at some people like, I could never handle that. I could never make it through that. And a friend of mine who she actually lost in a car accident. She lost her daughter, and that she was pregnant at the time, and then she had her baby, and then had that baby died from SIDS only a few months after she was born. And so here she is now with no children, and she had two. And she came up to me. I ran into her shortly after we lost our baby, and she just threw her arms around me and said, "I'm so, so sorry. We've just been praying for you." And I'm looking at her like, this is nothing compared to what you went through. And I said something to that effect, and she looked at me and she said, "Jesika, hard is hard. Mm-hmm. Hard is hard. We all have hard things, and
I love that.
we're each given what we need to learn and grow. And when we do look at it like that, then we learn those lessons and we get that peace and come out stronger."
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I love this talk so much. This is like the interview that I needed to have. I just feel so good. I love talking to you. You have...
You're sweet. I love talking to you.
Okay, everybody can just keep listening. We're just going to have a chat and get to know each other for the next 2 hours.
No, they're like, "No, stop her."
Turn it off. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your power mornings. I love that you call them power mornings.
When I don't have them, then yeah, my days are wrecked. No, not really, but
kind of.
If I can start with something spiritual nourishment and physical nourishment in the morning, I really do feel powered up for the day. I know it doesn't work for everyone to do it in the morning, but for whatever reason, if I can start my day that way, which right now looks much different than when I'm not pregnant. Right now, it's like the bare minimum. I don't get up quite as early as I usually would, but I get in some scripture study and then get in some physical activity. So right now that's just walking and a little prenatal yoga and sometimes a little weightlifting. Like, it's really minimal now, but I feel so much better when I do it. And I think when you get those endorphins going and you get in that right spiritual mind frame, it just sets you up for success. And when I don't do that because I go to bed too late or because I'm too tired or I think, oh, I'll fit it in later, it's just never quite the same. And I definitely start slacking at times. Like the last couple of weeks, I was just kind of hit or miss. And Sunday was like, okay, I got to rededicate. And so I've been 100% so far this week. And it just feels good, even though some days I am a little bit more tired because I didn't get to go to bed early last night and such. But I know the benefits of it. And my kids wake up really early. And so they know this is mom's time, that, and, you know, they see me studying the scriptures or they see me exercising in the front room. And I feel like I'm not putting them off. It's good for them to see that should be part of their day someday, to be able to always incorporate those two things. I just think they're so important.
I love that. I'm actually going to try and utilize that a little bit more, because when we lived in California last year in a 2-bedroom apartment and our living room was basically our bedroom. No, it was like our bed was in the living room because we just had to make it work, you know? And I couldn't step a toe out of bed. I was just talking to another person about this today without my kids waking up. If my husband got up, nothing happened. If it was me, it's like kids just have this radar. And so now that we're in a bigger house, I could totally get away with it. But I also feel like I try and sleep in because then I can avoid reality. But I'm definitely feeling it. You miss out on so much. You get to conquer your day so much better. And I would love for them to just see me doing that and just have that boundary of like, this is mom's time. I might be awake, but my time to take care of you hasn't quite started yet. So you can sit and watch or you can do it with me. But I love that.
Color over there while I do this, and
I'm sure that would probably work better than it used to. I used to try and do yoga with my kids, or do yoga while the kids were around, and it would just end up with me trying to be in my Zen place, and they're like crawling all over me. So maybe now
you're the jungle gym. Yes, I've tototally been there.
It'll be good for my core strength, right?
Exactly. A little extra weight. I would sometimes if my baby's like, okay, this is my bicep workout for today. It's all I can do.
Hey, it's improvising and it's effective. So that's fantastic.
Yep. Better than nothing.
Okay, let's go into kind of what you expressed was one of the biggest challenges you faced. And I guess I'll kind of rewind back to talking about how you were Miss Junior Miss. Is that the right title for it? Miss Junior Miss or just Junior Miss?
you know, it was called America's Junior Miss, and shortly after I participated in it, they changed the name because it had this little pageant connotation where really it's a scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
a real legit scholarship program. So it's actually called Distinguished Young
Oh my
Women
gosh.
now.
Cool.
So
I love that.
yeah, yeah, I do too. I do too. It's a little more of a mouthful, but I feel like it really adequately describes what it is
Yeah.
because I have met, I mean, my best friend to this day, I met at the national competition, and it really is just a group of amazing young women that
That's
participate.
so awesome. It kind of, yeah, it definitely didn't feel pageanty, I guess is that the right descriptive word? Definitely fits
Yeah.
with what I remember it being like. So that's really cool. But in that regard, because I know you've always been that type of person to kind of shine brightly, do you feel like what you mentioned that's been a struggle is caring what people think and comparing yourself and all of that? Do you feel like you've had to kind of dim your light ever to avoid that comparison game, or kind of where has that come into play in your life? Not to say like, I feel like honestly I could say you're one of the coolest people in the entire world, but I know that we never see ourselves that way. You won't accept it, so I just won't even.
Oh.
But really though, like what has been kind of your experience with that of the comparison game?
So I feel like I went through a period of my life where, like right after that, Distinguished Young Women of America, I traveled the country for a year, my whole freshman year of college, where every other week, pretty much, I flew somewhere else in the country, and I spoke at boys and girls clubs and did really awesome presentations. Not that my presentations were awesome, but I was part of these presentations with athletes like Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker and Olympic athletes, and we were talking to these kids that were there on field trips, and I got to really participate in some neat things and felt like I really got to learn so much from other people and share so much of my experience. In my church, I was able to they do these things called firesides, where they'll invite a guest speaker, and then especially they'll do them for youth, will all come and listen to your presentation. And I was doing a ton of firesides for several years. I feel like all through college, and it was really, really neat. And I mean, naturally, when you're doing something where you're kind of in the limelight, you get a lot of confidence from that. And then I got to this place where I got married and we moved across the country for my husband's graduate school, and I started having kids, and I was still doing a little bit of speaking and such. But then, you know, like other people win and other people do amazing things, and, you know, not that you're forgotten, but you move on, like, you know, life moves on. And I felt like, I was asked to come back to the national program several times to judge or to MC or to do different things. And other past winners were doing we're not doing the mom thing. They were getting graduate degrees. They were doctors. They were lawyers. They were TV hosts. They were, I mean, these are the women this program attracts are women that are out there doing things. And I was having kids and I was supporting my husband through graduate school, and I feel like maybe 5 or 6 years into that, I really started feeling like, is what I'm doing even comparable?
Yeah.
I mean, I had a hard time being able to say when they're like, oh, and what are you doing, Jessica? Oh, you're the winner from 2000. What are you doing? I'm pregnant with my third child and I'm home with my kids. It just felt so lame sometimes. And my husband would look at me and he's like, you should be so proud of that. You gotta own that. And I remember getting to this place where I thought, this really is the most beneficial thing for my children, for me to be there with them. And not to say that moms that work, you know, not to say that whatever any other woman does is any less important. But for me and my children, that was really the best thing I could be doing then.
Yeah.
And it was really great. As I started studying, I started reading, and I started seeking more for what God thought of me, not what everyone else may think of me. And it's just been such a beautiful journey because I feel like off and on, like it's easy to slide back into that place of, oh, so and so is doing this and so is doing that. And even people around us in our neighborhoods and in our circle of friends and in our families, even
Yes.
people who are doing amazing things. And to be able to say, I am completely content and happy with what I'm doing here because I feel like this is where God wants me.
Yes.
And I believe 100% that there is a devil and that he wants to put us down and he wants us to think that what we are doing is not good enough. And I have had, I've had ups and downs through these last, 15 years of motherhood and making different choices. And even just a couple years ago, I was kind of getting back into a funk. And I felt like God just said, you need to be telling yourself, this is my purpose. I mean, it was right when I started to homeschool. And it was, not the cool thing, especially moms in my neighborhood and, oh, you're homeschooling. And I was in this place again that was like, oh, okay, I have to like stand up for myself. And I know this is the right thing. And I remember on my morning runs, I just started telling myself it would always we're at the end of a long street. And I would just sprint that last street and I would say, I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. And I would just repeat that over and over as I was sprinting down the street and I'd get home and it would just be like, yes, what God is telling me to do, what I'm supposed to do is here in my home with my family. And it doesn't matter if I don't have a huge following of some feed, or it doesn't matter if I'm not out there speaking and presenting. It doesn't matter. This is what's most important right now.
Yeah.
And I just think we're seeking for what God thinks of us and
how we feel,
doing what
how we feel about ourselves.
Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. That was so profound. Again, I just feel like I could just sit here with my jaw hanging up and like keep going, keep talking. All of those things just speak to my soul. So I know they're speaking to the souls of everybody listening, because at the end of the day, really, it's very easy to fall into that trap of comparing yourself, especially even maybe what my problem is comparing myself to myself. Like I try and outdo myself all the time and I push myself a little too hard and I beat myself up when I'm less than perfect at one thing or another. And it's not even that I'm comparing to anybody around me. It's just like, I can do better than this. So it's that fine line of like pushing yourself to be marvelous and also being okay with the fact that if you're progressing a little bit each day, it's okay. It doesn't have to happen in sprints or in huge strides. But I love that. Like, I know who I am and I know my purpose. Those are the most amazing things. I'm going to say that to myself every day. And I feel like everything can kind of fall away with that knowledge and that confidence that you can have with those words. And words are powerful. Saying words out loud like that are so powerful.
Well, and I was at this place where my brother worked for this company where they would work with athletes purely on their mental game. Like that was the purpose for this company. And they work with some of the biggest athletes in the world. And it was all about, it doesn't matter how hard you swing, or it doesn't matter how far you can kick or whatever. If your mental game isn't right, then you're not going to be prepared. It talks about, developing these skills that get your mental game where it's supposed to be. And so I started using that with my kids just in, oh, I can't do this, or, oh, I'm not good at math or whatever. We would come up with words that, no, you say, maybe I don't quite understand this right now, but I'm going to get it. I'm going to understand it. And I was just doing so much with my kids on developing these skills of, but if you practice more, you can get that. And I came to this place where I'm like, I got to start using this on myself. Like, I need to be saying these words to myself when I'm just like, I'm not good enough, or I can't do that. No, maybe I'm not good at that right now. But if I start doing this every day, or if I just work a little hard at that, then I can be good at that. And it's so empowering.
It's so empowering. I think all of us, I mean, you guys, as soon as you finish this episode, just feel how different it feels to say, I'm awful and I'm terrible and I can't do that. And then feel how good it feels to say, like, it's a physical reaction that your body has to say, like, I'm wonderful. I'm amazing. I'm feeling it right now, guys. I'm feeling good. Just saying, I'm amazing. I'm talented.
You are amazing.
I'm enough. I have purpose and I'm beautiful. Like, saying that stuff out loud just creates the most positive energy and just makes you feel so good. So Those are such amazing things, and I'm so grateful everybody's been able to listen to. I think you're tremendous. If you haven't gotten that sense already, I think you're a wonderful, amazing person. So thank you.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
And even though I know this is uncomfortable, this is the question everybody hates, but what makes you a marvelous mom?
I would probably say that I'm willing to try and that I'm willing to admit my mistakes to my kids. I don't know how many times each day I say, I'm sorry, guys. Even tonight at dinner, we've been doing we don't do it every night, but often I'll say, okay, what was the worst thing of your day and what's the best thing of your day? And everyone goes around and says a couple of things. And anyway, I really got frustrated with my oldest daughter today. And so I said, the worst part of my day was that I raised my voice at Avery. I'm sorry. And Dave's like, oh, and you did to me too. And then he said, oh, and you did to me too. I was like, okay, the 3 worst parts of my day that I raised my voice at each of you.
Oh my gosh.
But, and I'm so sorry. And I was just like, okay, yes. And but I'm not afraid to say I'm sorry and to say, you guys, that was really lame. I shouldn't have, got so upset about that mess you made, or I shouldn't have, whatever. And I don't know. I feel like that gives me room to improve and to show them, okay, but I'm going to be better, and now I'm going to be happy, or now we're going to have fun. And it also helps me teach them that is why they have a savior, to say I'm sorry and to repent and to try harder, and it's going to be okay. Yeah. And
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm as hard as it is, and as much as many times that I mess up, I'm grateful that I can try again, and I do try again, and I get back up. And
it's the funny thing about motherhood is there's a lot of times that we say to ourselves, I just don't think I can do this anymore. I just don't think I can do it one more day. Like, I just can't. But deep down, we're just made of steel, and we know that we can. Like, we will. Even if we don't want to, we're going to, and we might as well enjoy it while we're doing it and try a little bit harder every day. It's so true. But I love that. Yep, I think that's definitely a great quality of a marvelous mom, and you have so many more. I could just rattle them off right now, but...
No. I'm just trying my best.
We all are. We're all like in this crazy world of motherhood together. It's crazy to think of yourself through your eyes as a child and what you viewed your mother as, and it makes you wonder, like, what are they seeing? What are they going to remember? And isn't it crazy that I always thought my mom was just like you said, just mom, like you don't really see them as a person or an individual. Right, so It's so funny to be on the opposite end. Sometimes I'm like, I can't believe I'm a mom. Like, I can't believe I'm that person to them.
I'm not old enough to do this. Right. I know.
I'm in charge.
I know.
Who put me in charge? Like, I'm not responsible enough for this. It's so funny. Well, thank you so much, Jesika, for coming and sharing your heart, sharing some painful things and also some mostly uplifting things. It's been so wonderful. And I know everybody listening is probably feeling so good and uplifted right now. These kinds of episodes, these kinds of chats are why I started the podcast, because it's so needed and it's such a great perspective and reminder that no matter where we are in life, where we are in our motherhood, somebody kind of gets us and somebody's going through something else too. So thank you for that.
We're all in this together, and the more we can uplift and strengthen each other, the better.
Agreed. All right, guys, thanks for listening to this episode, and we will see you on the next one. Have a marvelous day. As a busy mom who's also running multiple businesses, it's kind of hard for me sometimes to get healthy dinner on the table that my kids will actually eat, which is why I'm obsessed with HelloFresh. HelloFresh is going to help you get inspired again and again, be unstoppable, and eat deliciously with your family. They shop, plan, and deliver your food to your door. They give you step-by-step recipes and ingredients so you can just relax and enjoy all there is to love about cooking and, of course, eating. I know you'll love it as much as I do, so I'm offering you an amazing code. I'm not an affiliate, but this is just the best way to get it for the best price. Use code KIRTYRR to get $40 off your first HelloFresh box. This is an amazing, amazing deal, and I promise you will thank me later when you taste the food for the first time. So again, go check it out, HelloFresh.com, and use activation code KIRTYRR to get started today.